He changed the passwords, but the house remembered me. Chapter 1. The door that said my name. He changed the Wi-Fi name to For Security and the password to something long enough to sound moral. Breach at work, Mark said, holding up his phone like a priest with a wafer. IT wants us to rotate everything. Home too. He smiled with his careful mouth. I nodded with mine. That night, when I came back from the late client, the smart lock blinked green and spoke in its polite little voice. Welcome, Lena. It shouldn't have. New passwords should have unlearned me. Inside, the thermostat glowed. 72 degrees, scheduled boost at 2 a.m. We don't boost at 2. We don't schedule warmth when we're supposed to be asleep and good. Did you change the routines? I asked. He stirred pasta that needed salt and not an alibi. He smelled like cedar body wash, the expensive kind they put in boutique hotels and on men who try. Our doorbell camera chimed softly from the foyer as a package landed. The feed on the console flickered and froze on a shape that passed the porch, red, moving fast, the tail of a raincoat. I don't own red. I used to. Mark said it was a lot. I said, I know, and folded myself into beige. The lock had forgotten the neighbors when we installed it. It had remembered me. It remembered the red. Security, he said again, like a lullaby for adults. Everything is safer now. The thermostat hummed. Somewhere, a schedule refused to be corrected. Chapter 2. Access Logs. In the morning, I opened the app I wasn't supposed to be able to open. The house had kept me. Primary user, Lena at... The dot flickered. Mark must have changed his account, not mine. The access log was neat as a ledger. 0158, backdoor, temporary code accepted. 0203, thermostat boost active. 0209, bedroom shade lowered. 0212, goodnight scene. We don't have a temporary code. At 2:30 a.m., the camera learned a lesson in darkness. A brief bloom of red, a hand, the smear of 2 people and 1 shadow. I scrolled back farther. 3 nights, the same times, the same shadow. I put the phone down and listened to the kettle think about boiling. We stopped drinking tea after 9 when Mark couldn't sleep. The kettle still knows how to want. Work today? He asked, coming into the kitchen with the soft gait of a man who'd run in dreams. Clients, I said. Couple session at 10. Tell them to communicate, he said with a grin that wanted to be charming and landed on tired. He kissed my forehead. His mouth tasted of mint and a decision not spoken aloud. The door lock chimed at 7:12 as he left. Goodbye, Mark, it said. When the chime finished, the house remained. Tell me, I whispered to it. Tell me who bought the red. The house doesn't answer questions. It repeats patterns. Chapter 3. Ray again. I used to think betrayal wears fishnets. It doesn't. It wears a badge and a lanyard and a new job title. It laughs at the correct volume in staff meetings. Her name was Ray in the story I wrote before too, but that Ray belonged to another marriage, not mine. I decided people like Ray repeat through the neighborhood like weather. At the market that afternoon, a woman in a red raincoat touched the avocado I wanted, felt it like a cheek, and smiled without apology. She had hair the color of wheat, and a face I would call kind if I didn't dislike it. Take this one, she said, offering a greener fruit. Yours is already making plans. Thanks, I said. because we're polite in public, even when private is on fire. She turned at the checkout and dropped a key fob. I picked it up. The brand matched our lock. "Are you new to the system?" I asked, before my brain asked permission. "My boyfriend is," she said. "He loves gadgets. I love rain." To prove the second part true, she walked out into it without a hood. The red moved like a dot on a map I didn't want to own. I went home and stared at the door. I almost typed a new temporary code to see if the house would combine it with the one at 158. I stopped my hands because I wanted to keep one rule intact. Mark texted, "Late. Network issue. Don't wait up." The kettle begged to be useful. I said no, then yes. The steam fogged the console screen for a second, enough to blur the porch into a watercolor. When the fog cleared, it showed me what I already knew. The world brings your fear to the front door and asks you to sign. Chapter 4. The Friend with the Spare. Mira came over with bakery peace offerings, the kind with names that make you feel foreign inside your own tongue. "You look like you slept next to a sentence," she said. "Next to a schedule," I said, and showed her the logs. Mira was the kind of friend who pulled her scarf tight when thinking. Temporary code, badge, back door, 2 a.m. This is either an affair or a very boring burglary. I added, red raincoat. Mira exhaled. Or a rehearsal for an affair. "I want it to be a rehearsal," I said. "I want to catch it before the show opens." "Ask him tonight," she said. "Give him a version of the truth to hold and see if he can carry it." "I work with couples," I said. "I should know how." She tapped the counter where the key dish sat with its bowl of metal moons. "You're allowed to be dumb in your own house." "Stay for dinner," I said. "I promised my sister, but I can loan you my spine." She took the spare key she's had since college, the one that opens everything I lock by mistake, and pressed it into my palm. "In case you decide not to be home when you're home." I laughed because she meant it. That's what people mean when they love you. You can leave too. After she left, I put her key in the dish beside Mark's ring of responsibilities. The metal sounded like the clink of a truth I didn't live in yet. Chapter 5. Updates available. Mark came home at 10:40 p.m. smelling like cedar and weather. He looked surprised to see me on the sofa with my shoes on. "You're up," he said. "So are you," I said, "at 2 a.m. every night." He blinked like a man whose eyes suddenly picture themselves. What?" "The logs," I said. "Back door, temporary code, boost to 72, shades, goodnight." He laughed too quickly. "You know those logs glitch. The firmware's been buggy." "Except the camera isn't firmware. It's a lens, and it saw red." Mark's mouth made a small, disbelieving shape like the letter O from a child's book. "Lena," he said, as if my name could soften the furniture. "If I wanted to cheat, I wouldn't do it here. I'm not stupid." "Smart," I said, "is you changing the password and forgetting to change mine." He rubbed his face with 2 fingers as if he could erase an expression instead of revealing one. "There's a client, a big one. She had a panic attack last week. I offered to swing by after hours. She wears red," I finished. He didn't nod. He didn't have to. "It's harmless," he said, and the house dimmed the kitchen lights in the scripted way it does when we say goodnight. Except none of this was good, and none of it felt like night. "I'll stop," he added, "if you want me to, if it makes you uncomfortable." The sentence wore politeness the way a knife wears a napkin. "I want you to want to stop," I said. He looked at me like a man who'd been handed a test he hadn't studied for. "Updates are available," he said, gesturing at the console. "Let's install them, fix the clocks." We stood there together watching the progress bar fill itself with promises. At 99%, the doorbell chimed. No one was there. Somewhere, the thermostat clicked to life and pretended to obey. Chapter 6. The Red. It rained like it meant it. The sound on the porch was a rehearsal for applause. At 1:56 a.m., I waited in the dark next to the back door with my hand on the deadbolt the way you put a palm on a friend's shoulder before saying something bad. At 1:58, the temporary code word. I threw the bolt. The keypad flashed red, red, red. The lock spoke in its polite, failing voice, "Error, please try again." The voice sounded close to sorry. Footsteps paused on the other side. Fabric swooshed. A woman cleared her throat. Not Ray's laugh, not anything I'd recorded in my head 1,000 times. This voice had a patience that made my spine rehearse anger. "Mark," she called quietly, "it's cold." I opened the door. She was smaller than Red had made her. Up close, the coat looked almost pink where the porch light gave up. Her eyes were the kind that win in custody battles. She had a grocery bag in one hand and a key fob in the other. "Hi," she said. And in the space after the word, I heard the sound the window makes right before it breaks. "You must be Lena. I'm Frida." Not Ray. Not anybody my jealousy had made famous. Just a person holding a bag. "We're done here," I said, because my mouth needed to be brave, even if my bones required correspondence. "I'm not here to start anything," she said. She set the bag on the mat. Inside, soup in a plastic tub, bread with the bakery sticker, strawberries too bright to be moral. "He said you were sick." "Of what?" I didn't ask. "He's asleep," I said. "Right," she said, and her face folded in on itself but kept the dignity it came with. She hooked the fob on her finger like a toy she'd outgrown. She started down the steps, lifted her chin like a person choosing to be unashamed, and the rain tried its best to baptize her. Before she reached the bottom, she turned. "You're not the villain. Neither am I. He's not either. We're just—" She made a motion like untying a knot that wouldn't. "Harmless," I said. She smiled once, with only. When I closed the door, the lock said "Goodnight, Lena," because it didn't know how to say anything else. The soup smelled like thyme and kindness when I put it in the fridge. I wanted to hate her for that. I couldn't. I wanted to hate him. I could. I didn't know I'd turned the doorbell's mic to always on until it captured Mark's voice the next afternoon. Soft, with the corners worn down by practice. "I'm sorry," he said. "She wasn't supposed to be awake. Frida, I wasn't supposed to come. Mark, you shouldn't. Frida, I know. Mark, I'll end it tonight. Frida, what is it? We never—" A laugh that wasn't a laugh. Silence pressed like a wall. Frida again. "Your house doesn't like me. Mark, it's not the house. Frida, I know." Keys, footsteps, door chime. I listened to it 3 times. On the 4th, I turned it off because I didn't want the future to sound like that. He came home early with an expression you buy in apology stores. I told her not to come. I didn't ask her to. I mean, he lifted his hands, empty of everything that would help. "I'm ending it." "What is it?" I asked. "Soup? Routines? The feeling you get when someone who isn't me thinks you're interesting?" He paused a moment. "The part where I hide," he said like an answer a therapist might gently applaud. "Did you sleep with her?" I asked. "No." I wanted the parts that come before. The parts that feel harmless until they aren't, I said. He nodded once, an admission that chose to be small. Tonight, he repeated, I'll tell her it's done. Do it now while I make tea. He called her while I filled the kettle, while the water began calm and remembered boiling as a purpose. The conversation was short. He didn't say her name. He didn't say mine. He said, we can't, and I'm sorry, and I thought I was lonely. He hung up, and the kettle reached its note. I turned it off. He said, we want us. I want to be better. I said, wanting and making are cousins that don't visit. Chapter 8. Maintenance. We called it maintenance because separation sounded like paperwork. He slept in the guest room with the blue quilt my mother sewed when marriage was something you could fix with thread. We made rules. No late meetings, no doors opening after midnight. No red. He smiled at the last one like he thought he had remembered how to tease. On the third night, the thermostat boosted itself at 2 again. The house remembered who we had been in its routines. The people who thought that warmth at 2 meant something good. I sat on the stairs and watched the little number creep up and felt nothing but a math problem. Mira sent me a playlist called You First. It was full of songs that sounded like decisions. She also texted an address for a gen with a sauna and a note, the eucalyptus is loud, but the towels are soft. I laughed at the mercy hidden in specificity. Mark went to therapy and came home with words that sat between us like furniture we didn't own yet. He said, attachment, recognition, self-loathing. He said he had been starving and mistook a hand for a table. He asked me to come to a session. I went because love is sometimes an appointment you keep, even when you don't like the waiting room. He said to the therapist, I want to tell you something true. Then to me, it felt good to keep something for myself. Secrets are heavy. You get muscles where you should get ease. After we walked home past a shop window full of red dresses that would have scared me a year ago, I looked at them the way you look at photographs of places you used to live. At the door, the lock tried to read our faces. It said nothing. We went inside.
Chapter 9. The Night Without Schedules. Storm. The kind that shreds plans. The neighborhood blinked. The smart hub sighed and went dumb. The house became 4 walls, a roof, and our old mouths. We lit candles not for romance but for visibility. We moved the sofa close to the window because lightning likes to feel seen. Somewhere, the freezer tried to keep faith. Remember when we first moved in? Mark asked. We slept on the floor and you had red nail polish, and I said it looked like you had a secret. And I said, I do, because I did. What was it? That I didn't think I'd ever get married. I said, I liked being a person more than a couple. And now? I still like being a person, I said. I want to like being your person. But I don't know if I know how. He nodded, slow. I can learn not to want you to be the whole house. I can learn not to ask the house to be you. We sat in the storm with our analog thoughts while the kettle sat useless and the thermostat forgot to want. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like silence that didn't accuse. When the power returned, the lock woke with a cheerful beep and asked for a master code it hadn't asked for in a year. I set it to something I could remember even if love changed its shape. The house waited for instructions. We let it wait. Chapter 10. The Keys We Keep. Months later, I still know the time the thermostat used to lie.
I still notice red coats and wonder how many are just coats. Frida mailed me a postcard from a coast 2 states away. The back said, "I'm sorry for being the room where you had to say no. I'm learning to like soup for myself." I kept it, because it refused to make either of us a villain. Mark and I made a ceremony of the key dish. We took the fobs off and put metal back on metal. The keys rang like something that earns its usefulness. We didn't go back to the 2 a.m. boost. We learned the pleasure of blankets that don't ask the world to cooperate. We changed the lock open phrase from "goodnight" to "we're in." The door's voice tried the words on and decided it liked them. Sometimes I walk to the kitchen at night and put my palm on the console as if it were a forehead with a fever. I watch the light move through the schedule grid, empty at 2 a.m. the way a healed wound is still a story. I still work with couples who tell me about passwords and lanyards and people who wear rain like permission. I tell them the truth that isn't satisfying. There isn't one secret that saves you. There's 1,000 little ones you refuse to keep. Mark laughs more now. He installed a dumbbell for the back door, brass with a rope. When friends ask why, he says he likes the sound of a human asking to be let in. On the day we changed the Wi-Fi name back to something unserious, the doorbell camera pinged with a delivery. The red of the courier's logo smeared across the console like a small joke. I stared at it and felt fine. I don't know what the house will remember about us in a year. I hope it keeps the way we learned to sit with the kettle cold. I hope it keeps the storm. I hope it keeps the truth we didn't make noble. We hurt each other by looking for ourselves in other people, and found our way back by naming the difference. When I leave in the morning, the lock says, "Goodbye, Lena," because I asked it to. When I come home, the door does not say my name. It hums. The sound is small, almost nothing, but the door opens. I step in. We're in.